Do you feel like you're stuck? As if the dreams you've been holding on to are just too far out of reach? Have you ever wondered if you're asking for too much, or if the life you dream of is simply impossible? What if I told you that the plans God has for your life are far bigger than anything you could ever imagine? What if your breakthrough, the one you've been praying for, is closer than you think, and is going to come in a way that will absolutely blow your mind? Take a moment and picture this. What if the doors you've been knocking on are already beginning to open? And what if the blessings you've been waiting for are closer than you think? God's plan for your life is not limited by what you see now. It's bigger, more profound, and it's unfolding at this very moment, even if you don't see it yet. In this video, we'll uncover the powerful truth that trusting God's timing will lead you to blessings that go beyond material wealth. It's about unlocking divine provision in every part of your life: emotional peace, spiritual fulfillment, and even life-changing relationships. God's provision isn't just about what you see in front of you. His plans for you are about what's to come. The amazing, unexpected things He's preparing right now. When you trust in His timing, you open yourself to a flow of blessings that you never saw coming. Throughout this video, you'll discover how waiting on God's timing isn't just about patience, it's about faith, believing in something you can't yet see. You're not stuck, you're being prepared for something greater. Every step you take, even in the moments of uncertainty, is bringing you closer to a future you can't even imagine. This is where divine wealth begins. Not in what you already have, but in what you trust God to bring into your life in His perfect timing. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed right now. Life hasn't turned out the way you expected. You've worked hard, prayed hard, and still it feels like nothing's moving. You might be questioning if things will ever change, wondering why you're stuck in this waiting game. But here's the truth: this isn't the end of your story. It's just the beginning. I want you to know that you are not alone in this journey. Everyone has moments when they feel like giving up. Everyone has seasons of doubt. We all have those moments when we wonder, will this ever work out? Will I ever see the breakthrough I've been praying for? It's easy to feel overwhelmed, especially when the waiting seems endless. But let me tell you something powerful. The waiting is not in vain. Every single moment is part of a bigger plan that you're moving toward. God's plan. The struggles, the delays, even the unanswered prayers are all preparing you for what's coming. And trust me, what's coming is bigger and better than you can even imagine. Think about it for a second. Every challenge you've faced, every roadblock you've encountered is preparing you for something greater. You may not see it now, but your breakthrough is just around the corner. And when you trust God's perfect timing, you'll look back and realize that everything you've been through was part of the journey to bring you here, to this very moment. Every struggle has shaped you, and now you're ready for the next chapter. God is opening doors for you, doors you can't yet see, but He's already preparing them for you. The blessings that are on their way will come in ways you never expected. You'll experience a transformation in your life that will make you look back and marvel at how perfectly everything fell into place. This is what divine provision looks like. The unexpected blessings that will change everything. Unquote in the Bible. So if you're feeling like it's all taking too long, or if you're questioning if anything is ever going to happen, remember this: your breakthrough is coming. You're not waiting on luck or coincidence, you're waiting on divine timing. The timing that God has already set for you. It's perfect, it's right on time, and the best part is, you're closer to it than you realize. Life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes it feels like we're caught in a whirlwind, where the more we try to control things, the more they slip out of our hands. There are moments when the future looks uncertain, and the weight of financial struggles, relationship troubles, and self-doubt pulls us down. It's easy to get overwhelmed and feel like we're lost in a sea of challenges with no way out. We've all been there. Maybe it's the feeling of being stuck in a job you don't love, facing mounting bills, or dealing with the heartache of broken relationships. It's hard to hold on to hope when it feels like everything is falling apart. But here's something I want you to remember. Your struggles are not the end of your story. What you're going through now is just a chapter. And the story God is writing for you is far bigger than you can see. Let's take a moment to look at the story of Joseph from the Bible. Joseph was a young man who faced unimaginable hardships, but his story is a beautiful reminder that even in the darkest moments, God has a plan for us. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery. Can you imagine the pain he must have felt? The ones he loved most turned their backs on him, and he was cast into a life of uncertainty and hardship. Yet Joseph's story didn't end in the pit. It didn't end in betrayal or slavery. Instead, God used everything he went through to raise him to a place of unimaginable blessing. From the pit to the palace, Joseph's journey was one of divine intervention and perfect timing. He may not have understood why he had to go through all that pain, but looking back, he saw that it was all part of God's plan for his life. Joseph's story is a reminder to us all, no matter how dark things may seem, God's timing and purpose will always bring about victory. It's easy to feel like our dreams are slipping away, but when we trust in God, we begin to see how He is working behind the scenes to bring us to where we need to be. There are moments in life when it feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. Maybe you've been waiting for a breakthrough for so long, but nothing seems to change. Every door you knock on feels like it's closed, and you're standing at the edge of your own uncertainty, wondering if God has forgotten about you. I want you to know that I understand that feeling. It's hard to keep the faith when everything around you seems to be falling apart. The pain feels unbearable, and you begin to wonder if this is what your life will always look like. But here's something I've learned. Just because you can't see God's plan in the moment doesn't mean it's not happening. Joseph didn't know when or how things would turn around, but in the midst of his struggles, he remained faithful. He chose to trust in God even when everything around him seemed hopeless. He didn't give up, even when he was thrown into a pit, left to rot in prison, and faced the deepest betrayals from his own family. Think about what it would feel like to be Joseph. Imagine having your entire life turned upside down by people you love, being ripped from everything familiar, and being thrown into an unfamiliar world full of uncertainty. It's easy to question everything when you're in the middle of the storm. It's easy to feel like you're being punished, to think that things will never change. But Joseph's life is proof that God is always working, even when we can't see it. Every moment of pain, every tear, every loss was used to prepare Joseph for the incredible plan that God had for his life. And the same is true for you. God is using your struggles to shape you into the person you need to be for the blessings that are coming. We all face moments when it feels like we're walking through the wilderness. It's hard to see the purpose in the struggle when we're right in the middle of it. But it's during these times of waiting that our faith is strengthened. We learn to trust in God's timing, knowing that He has a greater plan for us. The wilderness is not where we are meant to stay forever. It's a place of growth, a place where we learn to depend on God, and a place where He prepares us for what's to come. It may feel like you're stuck in the middle of a storm, but I want you to remember that storms don't last forever. They may shake us, they may challenge us, but there's a saying that it's always darkest before the dawn. It may sound cliche, but it's true. In the moments when we feel like giving up is the only option, when the pain feels like it's too much to bear, it's important to remember that breakthroughs often come after the hardest trials. The process of growth isn't easy. It's filled with pain, disappointment, and setbacks. But those setbacks are actually setups for the victory that's coming. Joseph's victory didn't come immediately. It came after years of suffering, hardship, and waiting. He was thrown into prison, faced rejection, and lived in uncertainty for a long time. But in the end, he was elevated to a position of great authority. His dreams came true, but it took time. God's timing was perfect, and Joseph's perseverance through the pain set him up for a victory that exceeded all expectations. The same is true for you. You may feel like you've been waiting forever, that your breakthrough is never coming. But I promise you, God has a perfect plan for your life. Every challenge you face is preparing you for the victory that's ahead. The pain you're enduring is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of something greater. If you're in the middle of a storm right now, take heart. Keep going. Don't give up. Your victory is just around the corner. You might not see it yet, but God's plan for your life is unfolding right before your eyes. The journey from struggle to victory may not be easy, but it is always worth it. The greater the challenge, the greater the reward. You are being prepared for something amazing, something that will take you farther than you ever imagined. Don't lose hope. Trust in God's timing and His plan for your life. In the end, the journey you're on is not just about the struggles you face, but about how you grow through them. Every trial you endure, every hardship you overcome, is making you stronger, more resilient, and more prepared for the blessings that are waiting for you. Trust in the process, trust in God's timing, and remember, your breakthrough is just around the corner. God's plan for you is bigger than you could ever imagine. Trust Him, even when it's hard. The storms will pass, and the victory is coming. Keep your faith strong, and know that you are never alone in your struggles. God is with you every step of the way, working behind the scenes to bring you into the abundance He has promised. When we think of wealth, what comes to mind? Money, property, possessions, things that society tells us define success. But what if I told you that true wealth isn't about these things at all? What if I told you that the greatest riches in life come from trusting God's plan for us? True wealth goes beyond material possessions. It's about the health we're blessed with, the love we share with others, and the peace that comes from knowing we are walking in alignment with God's purpose. This is the divine provision that God promises to all who trust in Him. Divine wealth isn't just about money. It's the abundance that God gives us in every area of life, in our health, our relationships, our purpose, and the peace He provides. True wealth is found in the things that can't be bought, the things that truly matter. For example, consider your health. Without good health, material wealth is useless. Divine provision ensures that we have the strength and vitality to fulfill our purpose. Even when faced with sickness, God's provision brings healing and restoration. Then there's the wealth of relationships. Money can never replace the love and support of family, friends, and loved ones. When we trust God, He brings the right people into our lives. People who uplift and encourage us. Relationships are one of the most valuable forms of wealth, and God promises to bless us with strong, meaningful connection. But perhaps the most precious wealth of all is the wealth of purpose. We were all created with a specific purpose, and true wealth is found in living that purpose. When we trust in God's plan, He guides us toward fulfilling that purpose, and we experience a deeper sense of fulfillment and joy. The Bible is filled with stories of God's provision, stories that remind us that God always provides for His people, even when it seems impossible. Take Abraham, for instance. God promised Abraham that he would be the father of many nations, but at the time he had no children, and he was well beyond the age of fathering a child. Everything in the natural world said this was impossible, but God's timing is perfect. In his own time, Sarah bore Isaac, and through Isaac's descendants, Abraham became the father of nations. This story reminds us that when God makes a promise, He will keep it, even if circumstances seem to work against us. Trusting in God's timing is the key to experiencing His provision. Another powerful example is David. As a young shepherd, David was chosen by God to be the king of Israel. But David's path was anything but easy. He faced years of persecution from King Saul, who was jealous of him. Yet through it all, David trusted God's plan for his life. He knew that despite the hardships, God had a purpose for him. David's life became a testament to God's faithfulness. He went from a humble shepherd to one of Israel's greatest kings. And through it all, God provided for him in ways David couldn't have imagined. David's story shows us that God's provision often comes through the hardest seasons of our lives. One of the most beautiful stories of divine provision is the story of the widow and the oil in 1 Kings 17. The widow was facing a famine and was down to her last meal. When the prophet Elijah asked her for food, she had nothing left to give. But in faith, she obeyed God's command and gave what little she had. Miraculously, her jar of oil never ran out, and she had enough to feed herself, her son, and Elijah. This story teaches us that when we trust God, even when we have nothing left, He will provide in ways we could never have imagined. God's provision doesn't depend on our circumstances. It depends on our faith. What makes divine provision so amazing is that it comes in supernatural ways. When we align ourselves with God's will, we open the door to blessings that exceed anything we could hope for or imagine. God's blessings aren't limited by our circumstances. They come in ways we can't foresee, through people, opportunities, and moments that seem too good to be true. When we trust in God's plan and align our actions with His will, He opens doors that we could never have opened on our own. A job opportunity, financial breakthrough, or even a restored relationship. These are all examples of the supernatural blessings that come when we trust God. God doesn't just meet our needs, He exceeds them. He gives us more than we could ever imagine. This is the promise of divine provision, that God's blessings are greater than anything we could earn on our own. To experience the full extent of God's provision, we must align ourselves with His will. This means trusting in His timing, surrendering our plans, and following His direction, even when we don't understand it. Trusting God's plan is not always easy, especially when things are difficult. But when we do, we open ourselves to blessings that are beyond what we could ask for. Even when life seems uncertain, when the road ahead is unclear, we can trust that God's provision is on the way. It may not come in the way we expect, but it will come. And when it does, it will be more than enough. As we experience God's provision, it's important to remember that it's not just for us, it's for others as well. The wealth we receive from God is meant to overflow into the lives of those around us. When we are blessed, we are in a position to bless others. Our divine wealth isn't just for our own enjoyment. It's to be shared with those in need. God's provision is not just for us to hoard. It's a gift meant to be shared, to be used for His glory and to bless others. As we receive, we should be ready to give. Divine provision is a promise that goes beyond material wealth. It's about the peace, joy, and fulfillment that come from living in alignment with God's will. When we trust God, He provides for us in ways that far exceed anything we could ask for. His blessings are greater than anything we can achieve on our own, and they come in supernatural ways. If you are waiting on God's provision, hold fast to the truth that He will provide. His timing is perfect, and when He provides, it will be more than enough. Trust His plan for your life, and know that His divine provision is already on its way. In life, there are moments when doubt creeps in, and it feels as though the future is uncertain. We look at our struggles, be it financial, emotional, or relational, and wonder, is this really going to happen for me? Will God truly come through? Doubt is natural, but it can hold us back from receiving the blessings God has promised. God's timing doesn't always align with our expectations. We might pray and wait, but it often feels like nothing is happening. The challenge is learning to trust that God's plan for us is bigger and better than we can imagine. He works behind the scenes in ways we can't always see or understand. It's easy to get discouraged when life isn't going the way we hoped. When things feel out of control, fear and doubt can take over. Whether it's the financial struggle of making ends meet or the emotional toll of a difficult relationship, it's hard not to question if we'll ever see breakthrough. These doubts don't mean you've lost faith. They simply show you're human. But in those moments, it's important to remember that God's timing is always perfect, even if it doesn't match our desires or schedule. He is always at work, even when it seems like nothing is happening. The challenge is to trust that He knows the right time for things to unfold in our lives. The story of Abraham is a powerful reminder of trusting God's timing. God promised Abraham that he would have a son, but when the promise was made, Abraham was old, and his wife Sarah was beyond childbearing age. It didn't make sense, but Abraham chose to believe in God's promise. He didn't let doubts define his journey. Even though the wait was long, God's timing was perfect, and in His time, Sarah gave birth to Isaac. Abraham's story teaches us that faith is not about understanding the timing, but about trusting in God's plan. We don't always see the bigger picture, but God is working things out in His time. Abraham's faith didn't waver, and neither should ours. The hardest part of trusting God's timing is the waiting. It's difficult to sit in uncertainty, especially when it feels like nothing is happening. But God uses these moments to prepare us for what's ahead. Think about a seed planted in the soil. It takes time to grow, but during this process, God is shaping you, teaching you, and equipping you for what's next. Waiting is not the same as doing nothing. It's a time of growth and learning. In those moments, trust that God is using your circumstances to develop your character. You might not see it now, but your struggles are preparing you for greater things. Trusting the process means believing that God is at work in every season, even if it doesn't make sense to us. Remember the story of Joseph, who was sold by his brothers into slavery, spent years in prison, and faced many hardships. But despite all his challenges, God was preparing Joseph for greatness. His story is a testament to the fact that God's delays are not denials. Every setback was a setup for a breakthrough. Like Joseph, you might not understand why things are happening the way they are, but trust that God is positioning you for something greater. Every delay, every struggle is part of a bigger plan that only God can see. When doubt threatens to shake your faith, remind yourself that God's plan is bigger than your circumstances. It's easy to question God's timing when things aren't moving according to your schedule, but true faith means believing even when you don't have all the answers. It's about trusting that God will come through, even when it seems impossible. The process of waiting can be discouraging, but it's not a sign that God has forgotten you. Instead, it's a sign that He is preparing you for something bigger. As you wait, your faith will grow stronger. You'll learn to rely on God more and trust that His timing is always perfect. When you're in a season of waiting, it can feel like you're stuck in a holding pattern. But remember, this waiting period does not define you. What defines you is how you respond. Will you choose to trust in God's plan even when things don't make sense? Will you keep going, even when you feel like giving up? Trusting God's timing doesn't mean you'll never face challenges. It means that even in the middle of those challenges, you choose to believe that God is with you and working on your behalf. The delays and struggles are preparing you for what's next. They're shaping you into the person you need to be to fulfill God's purpose for your life. The waiting period can be one of the hardest seasons in life, but it is also the season where God does some of His most important work in us. Don't let doubt steal your faith. Trust that every moment of waiting is an opportunity for growth and preparation. You may not understand what's happening now, but you can trust that God is making all things work together for your good. Abraham and Joseph's stories remind us that God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't make sense. When you face doubt, lean on faith. Trust that God will come through at just the right time. Trust the process, and know that the breakthrough you're waiting for is closer than you think. The idea of leaving a legacy is powerful. We often think about legacies in terms of money, property, or material possessions. But what if the greatest legacy you could leave behind isn't something tangible? What if the legacy you leave is one of faith, trust in God's timing, and the abundance that comes from walking in His plans? When we trust God's timing and His plans for our lives, the blessings we receive are not just for us. They have a ripple effect, touching the lives of our families, our communities, and future generations. When God blesses us, His blessings are not just meant to stay with us. They are meant to be passed on. Our faithfulness to God doesn't just shape our own lives, it shapes the lives of everyone around us. And the legacy of blessings we receive has the power to impact generations. The wealth that comes from trusting in God's timing isn't only about material wealth. It encompasses emotional, relational, and spiritual abundance. It's about walking in peace, experiencing joy, and being rooted in the knowledge that God is in control of our lives regardless of our circumstances. Think about how a simple act of kindness can create a ripple effect. One person's kindness can spark a chain of positive actions, creating a cycle of goodwill that touches many lives. Now, imagine the power of trusting God with your life. When you trust Him with your dreams, your plans, and your future, the blessings that flow from that trust don't just change your life. They change the lives of those around you. This is what a legacy of divine blessings looks like. When we step out in faith and trust God's timing, we create a foundation of blessings that extend far beyond our own lifetime. The way we live our lives, the way we trust in God's plan, and the way we walk in His blessings can have a lasting impact on those who follow us. Your faithfulness to God today will shape the lives of your children, your grandchildren, and even future generations. The trust you place in God's plan today will become the foundation for the blessings they receive in the future. God doesn't bless us just for us. He blesses us to be a blessing to others. The wealth that flows from His provisions is meant to be shared. Whether it's your time, your love, your resources, or your faith, God's blessings are meant to overflow into the lives of those around you. When you are blessed, you are called to bless others. This is how we create a legacy that transcends our lives and impacts future generations. It's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of material wealth, to think that blessings are only about the things we can see and touch. But true wealth is so much more than that. True wealth is about peace of mind, a strong sense of purpose, healthy relationships, and spiritual fulfillment. It's about knowing that no matter what challenges you face, God's provision is always enough. The wealth you receive from God doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes your heart and your perspective on life. The most powerful legacy you can leave is a legacy of faith. Faith is contagious. When your children see you trusting God, relying on Him during difficult times, and celebrating His blessings, they will learn to do the same. The way you live your life is a powerful testimony of God's faithfulness. Your example sets the tone for your children's faith journey. They will learn what it looks like to trust God's timing, to wait on His promises, and to walk in His blessings because they've seen you do it. Consider the story of Abraham. God promised Abraham that he would be the father of many nations, but there was one problem. Abraham was old and his wife Sarah was barren. It didn't make sense. How could a man so old with a wife who couldn't have children be the father of many nations? Yet Abraham chose to trust God. He didn't understand how it would happen, but he believed that God's timing was perfect. And sure enough, God fulfilled His promise. Abraham's trust in God didn't just change his life, it changed the course of history. His faith set the stage for generations to come. Abraham's faith wasn't just about his own blessing, it was about the legacy of faith that he passed down. His trust in God laid the foundation for future generations of believers. You can do the same. The trust you place in God today will impact your children's future. The blessings you receive will overflow into their lives, and they in turn will pass that trust down to their children. This is how generational blessings work. You are building a legacy of faith and trust with every step you take in obedience to God. Every time you choose to trust His timing, you are setting the foundation for blessings that will last long after you're gone. Your children will inherit the blessings you receive, and they will continue to build on that foundation of faith. The trust you place in God today is not just for your benefit. It's for your children and their children. The wealth you build is not just material. It's a legacy of trust, faith, and divine provision. Building a legacy of trust takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. It requires a commitment to God's plan, even when things don't make sense. Trusting God isn't always easy. It means surrendering control, letting go of your own plans, and waiting for His timing. But every time you choose to trust, you are building a foundation of faith that will benefit your future generations. Your faithfulness to God today will create a legacy that impacts your children and their children. The way you trust in God's timing, the way you rely on His provisions, and the way you celebrate His blessings will set an example for your children to follow. They will learn how to trust God, how to wait for His perfect timing, and how to walk in the abundance. Generational blessings are one of the most beautiful aspects of trusting God. When you walk in faith and trust His timing, you're not just changing your own life, you're setting up your family for success. The wealth you receive from God, whether it's peace, joy, health, or material blessings, isn't just for you. It's meant to be shared, to be passed down from one generation to the next. Think about the generations before you. Whether it's your parents, grandparents, or even distant ancestors, their faithfulness to God has shaped who you are today. You are living in the blessings they prayed for, the prayers they prayed, and the trust they placed in God's plan. In the same way, you are now building a legacy of trust that will impact your children and beyond. The legacy you create today will continue to impact future generations. Your faith, your trust in God's timing, and the blessings you receive will be passed down from generation to generation. The wealth you receive from God is not just for your benefit. It's for your children, your grandchildren, and even those who come after them. You are building a legacy of divine blessings that will last long after you're gone. When you trust in God and His timing, you are not just changing your own life. You are shaping the future of your family and your community. The blessings you receive are meant to be shared. The legacy you create is not just about what you have, but about what you give. Your faithfulness to God today will create a ripple effect of blessings that will continue to impact generations to come. The wealth you build in trusting God's timing isn't just about material possessions. It's about creating a legacy of faith, love, and trust that will last forever. And that is the greatest legacy you could ever leave behind. Every journey has a defining moment. A moment when everything you've been working for, all the pain, the struggle, and the waiting, all seems to be leading to a single point. A point when it feels like the struggle is never ending and you can no longer see the light at the end of the tunnel. In those moments, it seems as though giving up would be easier than continuing. But here's where you need to hold on the most, because in the middle of that storm, the breakthrough is on the horizon. It's easy to lose hope during these trials. When life feels heavy and nothing seems to go right, it's hard to trust that things will ever get better. And yet, it's exactly in these moments of intense struggle when God's work is most powerful. Just as the night is darkest before dawn, your breakthrough often comes when you feel at your lowest. This is the point where the tension peaks, the pressure mounts, and the breakthrough, the moment you've been waiting for, is just around the corner. Think about Joseph, one of the most compelling stories of struggle and breakthrough in the Bible. Joseph's life was filled with betrayal, abandonment, and hardship. He was sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused of a crime he didn't commit, and spent years in prison. His story was a series of trials, one after another. And yet, he could have given up at any time. He could have let bitterness fill his heart. He could have turned his back on God in the midst of all the pain. But instead, Joseph trusted in God's plan. We all know what happened next. Joseph's breakthrough came when he least expected it. From the prison, he was called to interpret Pharaoh's dream, which led to him becoming second in command over Egypt. Joseph's journey from the pit to the palace wasn't just about his own success. It was about the divine plan that God was working out through his life. His breakthrough was about more than just a personal triumph. It was about God's timing, His faithfulness, and His ability to turn even the most devastating circumstances into a testimony of His glory. If you're facing a difficult situation today, know this: your breakthrough is often right around the corner. It might feel like you're stuck, like the walls are closing in on you, but remember that God is working behind the scenes. He's preparing you for something bigger than you could ever imagine. Joseph didn't see the palace from the pit. He didn't know how or when his breakthrough would come, but he remained faithful, trusting that God's timing was perfect. And your breakthrough will come too, when the time is right, when God's timing aligns with His purpose for your life. There will always be a point in every journey when it feels like giving up is the easier choice. The trials become too overwhelming, and the weight of your struggles threatens to crush you. But in that very moment, you need to hold on. You need to trust that God is not finished with you yet. It might seem like everything is falling apart, but trust that in God's perfect timing, everything will fall into place. Think of the times in your life when you felt the most discouraged, when nothing was going right and you wondered if God was even listening. Those are the times that God is working the hardest in your life. He is molding you, shaping you, and preparing you for the moment of breakthrough. You may not see it now, but when that moment comes, you'll look back and understand how every struggle, every challenge, every tear was part of the process that led you to the breakthrough. In these moments, the temptation to give up is strong. It feels easier to let go of hope, to stop believing that something better is on the horizon. But if you can just hold on, if you can find the strength to keep going, even when it seems like everything is falling apart, God will show up in a way that will leave you in awe. The breakthrough you've been waiting for is closer than you think. All you need to do is trust. Just like Joseph, who went from being a slave to becoming a ruler, your breakthrough is often a sudden shift. One minute you're stuck in a situation that seems hopeless, and the next, everything changes. God is a God of the unexpected. He doesn't work on our timeline. He works on His own perfect timeline. What seems like a delay or a setback is often God's way of preparing you for something greater. He's not denying you your breakthrough. He's just waiting for the right moment to release it. God's timing is always perfect, even when it doesn't make sense to us. Just look at the life of Abraham. God promised him a son when he was already well beyond the age of fathering children. It didn't make sense. It seemed impossible. But God's promise came to pass in his perfect timing, and Abraham's faith was rewarded in ways he could never have imagined. Your breakthrough might feel impossible right now. The situation might seem hopeless, and the dream you're chasing might feel so far out of reach. But God's timing is perfect. When you look back at this moment, you will see how God was preparing you, shaping you, and strengthening your faith. The breakthrough you're waiting for will come when the time is right. In the waiting, there is a purpose. Every trial, every setback, every hardship is building something within you. God is refining your character, strengthening your faith, and making you ready for the blessing that's coming. It's easy to be impatient in the waiting, but trust that God is working behind the scenes in ways that you can't see. Your breakthrough is not a matter of if, but when. When you're in the middle of a struggle, it can feel like the end of the road, but in reality, it's often just the beginning. God works in mysterious ways, and He uses every circumstance to bring about His will for your life. The struggles you're facing are part of the preparation for the incredible breakthrough that's on its way. Joseph's story is a powerful reminder that the road to greatness is often paved with hardship. But when you trust in God's timing, your breakthrough will come, and it will be greater than you ever imagined. There's a breakthrough waiting for you, just like there was for Joseph. The pain you're feeling right now is temporary. The waiting will soon be over. God's promises are sure, and He is faithful to bring them to pass. Keep holding on. Keep trusting. Your breakthrough is just around the corner. God's timing is never wrong. It's always perfect. When you trust in His plan, when you remain faithful through the struggles, you will experience the breakthrough that He has promised. Hold on. Your moment is coming. As we come to the end of this journey, let's take a moment to reflect on the key truths we've discussed. Life is full of challenges, doubts, and moments when we feel overwhelmed. But in every season, God's plan for us is always in motion. Trusting in Him and believing in His divine provision are the keys to unlocking the blessings He has waiting for us. We've seen how God's timing is never late, never early, but always perfect. Every moment of waiting is not wasted. It's a process that refines us, prepares us, and brings us closer to the breakthrough that is coming. The abundance of blessings God offers isn't just material wealth. It's a wealth of peace, joy, purpose, and health. These blessings flow to us when we align ourselves with God's will and trust in His perfect timing. The stories of Abraham, Joseph, David, and others show us the power of trusting God even when the path seems unclear. Every trial they faced led them to a place of greater purpose and greater blessings. Your life is no different. Whatever you're going through right now, know that God is working behind the scenes to bring you to the place where you will experience His abundance in every area of your life. Paul, remember, God's blessings often come in supernatural ways. These blessings are beyond what we can imagine, and they often come at unexpected times and in unexpected forms. When we align with God's will, we open ourselves to blessings that are more than just what we can see in the natural. So stay faithful. Keep trusting, even when it feels like the waiting is too long or the challenges are too great. Now it's time for action. This is your moment. The first step is simple. Trust God more deeply. If you've been holding back, uncertain about His timing or His plan, let today be the day you decide to step forward with faith. Take that first step, knowing that God's plan for your life is bigger and better than anything you could ever dream up on your own. Prayer is powerful. Speak to God. Share your hopes, your doubts, your fears, and your dreams with Him. Ask for the strength to trust His plan and for the wisdom to follow His lead. Then take action. Move forward in faith even when you can't see the end result yet. Every step you take in trust brings you closer to the breakthrough you've been waiting for. Remember that God is with you every step of the way, and His blessings are already in motion. Lastly, I want to leave you with this. Your breakthrough is waiting for you. The struggles you've been facing, the doubts you've been holding on to, they are all part of the process that is leading you to something greater. Trust that God's provision is not just for today, but for your future as well. Keep believing, keep moving forward, and know that the best is yet to come. As you walk in faith, trusting in God's plan for your life, you will see the overflow of blessings that He has promised. This is not just a promise for a select few. It's for you, so take that step today. Step into the faith that God has called you to, knowing that the path ahead is filled with divine provision, supernatural blessings, and a future far greater than you could imagine. Keep trusting, keep believing, and watch as God's perfect timing unfold in your life.